The drawn blade. Welcome to an exploration of one of the most fundamental distinctions in the laws of Shechita, the difference between a drawing motion and a striking motion. In Masechet Chullin, the Talmud confronts a seemingly simple question: does the method of cutting matter? The Mishnah teaches us cases where complex scenarios, two heads cut simultaneously, two people holding one knife, are perfectly valid. Yet decapitation in one swift motion is invalid. What determines this boundary? The answer lies in understanding the essence of Shechita itself, not just as an act of cutting, but as a specific kind of motion derived from the very language of Torah. Let us begin with the fundamental question: is all cutting the same? Consider two different ways to sever an object. On one side, we have draw, a smooth, continuous motion where the blade glides across a surface, like drawing a bow across strings. On the other side, we have strike, a forceful downward impact, where the blade descends with pressure from above. Both methods can cut through flesh. Both can sever the simanim. But the Mishnah in Chullin Daf reveals that in the world of Shechita, this distinction is everything. Only one of these methods constitutes valid slaughter. The Mishnah teaches, if one decapitated the animal in one motion and did not slaughter the animal in the standard manner of drawing the knife back and forth, the slaughter is not valid. The law requires a continuous drawing motion. A bisayan voltage known as holacha v'ava, the knife must be drawn across the neck, not pressed down upon it. A forceful press or strike, known as darasa, renders the act completely invalid, even if the simanim are fully severed. This is not merely a technical requirement. It reflects the essential character of Shechita as an act of precision and care, fundamentally different from violent decapitation. The Mishnah confirms that as long as the continuous drawing motion is maintained, even complex actions are permissible. Consider the case of slaughtering two heads simultaneously. The Mishnah states, one who slaughters by cutting two animals' heads simultaneously, his slaughter is valid. Despite the complexity, the drawing motion across both necks constitutes valid Shechita. Similarly, the Mishnah teaches, if two people are grasping a knife and slaughtering one animal, even if each is holding a knife and slaughtering one above and one below, with each one slaughtering at a different point in the neck, their slaughter is valid. What unites these cases? In both, the knife is drawn across the neck. The motion, not the simplicity of the scenario, determines validity. The invalidations of the Mishnah reveal the law's absolute focus on the correct motion. The general rule: if one decapitated the animal in one motion and did not slaughter the animal in the standard manner of drawing the knife back and forth, the slaughter is not valid. Why? Because decapitation in a single downward motion is a strike, darasa, rather than a draw. But the Mishnah introduces a fascinating qualification. In a case where one was in the process of slaughtering the animal in the standard manner and he decapitated the animal in one motion, if the length of the knife is equivalent to the breadth of the animal's entire neck, the slaughter is valid. Why does a longer knife make the difference? Because even in one motion, if the knife is long enough, the blade has necessarily been drawn across the full width of the neck. The drawing motion, however compressed, has still occurred. The ultimate proof of this principle from the Mishnah: if he drew it back and forth, even if the knife was of any length, even if he slaughtered with a scalpel, beizmel, the slaughter is valid. The motion is what matters, not the size of the tool. The Mishnah has established the principle. But the Gemara now asks the fundamental question: from where is this matter derived? What is the source in Torah for requiring a drawing motion? How do we know that Shechita must be performed in this specific manner? The Gemara presents the derivation of Shmuel. Yat is derived from a verse, as the verse states, their tongue is a sharpened, shachut, arrow, it speaks deceit, Yirmiyahu 9:7. Shmuel sees in this verse the key to understanding Shechita. Just as an arrow is propelled by drawing back the bowstring, a continuous pulling motion, so too, Shechita must be performed by drawing the knife across the animal's neck. The word shachut, related to the root of Shechita, describes something that operates through a drawing action. An arrow doesn't strike its target by being pressed against it. It reaches its target through the drawing motion of the bow. Similarly, valid shechita requires drawing the knife, not pressing or striking the neck. The school of Rabbi Ishmael adds additional support from Te'anach. The Gemara teaches, the verse states, "And he shall slaughter v'shachat, the young bull before the Lord, v'yikra 1.5." The term v'shachat means nothing other than, and he shall draw the knife across the neck of the animal. But how do we know shechut means drawing? The Gemara continues, and similarly, the verse states, "And King Solomon made 200 targets of drawn, shechut, gold, melachim 1010 ו-16 דקות." This refers to gold that has been drawn out, smoothed and elongated in the manner of goldsmiths, through a continuous pulling motion that creates a smooth, continuous form. The Gemara then returns to the arrow verse to seal the proof, ensuring precision in the derivation. One might have thought shechut gold means gold spun like soft thread, kachut, but the arrow verse clarifies, shechut means drawn like the bowstring that propels an arrow, establishing the definitive meaning of a drawing action. The single Hebrew root shechut appears in three distinct contexts: ritual slaughter, the physics of archery, and the artistry of metallurgy. A knife drawn across a neck. An arrow propelled by drawing a bowstring. Gold drawn out into smooth, continuous form. Together, these three manifestations of shechut establish an unambiguous principle. Shechita is defined by a continuous drawing motion. This is not merely a technical rule, but a concept woven into the very fabric of biblical language. The choice of the word v'shachat in Torah reveals the essential nature of the act, precise, controlled, continuous, fundamentally distinct from striking or pressing. Having established the principle, the Gemara now relates an astonishing story that tests these laws at their absolute limit. The Gemara states, Rava would examine the arrow for Rabbi Yonah bar Te'achlifa to ensure that there were no notches in it. And Rava shot the arrow and slaughtered a bird with it as it was flying. Imagine the scene, a bird in flight, an arrow released, and in that split second, valid shechita performed. This extraordinary act demonstrates that the principles we've learned can be applied even in the most extreme circumstances. But it also raises profound halakhic challenges. The Gemara immediately raises a concern, and perhaps when the arrow cut the bird's neck it performed an inverted slaughter, chalada. Chalada occurs when a blade is concealed within the neck and cuts the simanim from back to front, the opposite direction from valid shechita. How could Rava and Rabbi Yonah bar Te'achlifa be certain that in the chaos of a mid-air impact, the arrow cut correctly from front to back? The Gemara responds with elegant simplicity. We see that the feathers at the front of the neck were unraveled by the arrow. The physical evidence on the bird itself provided certainty. If the feathers at the front of the neck were disturbed, the arrow must have entered from the front, cutting in the proper direction. The drawing motion of the arrow through the neck, even in a metallurgy, constituted valid shechita, and the evidence confirmed it. But the Gemara raises another difficulty, this one concerning the mitzvah of kisuya de'am, covering the blood. The Gemara notes, but doesn't the bird's blood require covering with earth? This mitzvah applies to all slaughtered birds. Moreover, the Gemara cites the teaching of Rabbi Zera in the name of Rav, in fulfilling the mitzvah of covering the blood. One who slaughters an undomesticated animal or bird must place earth beneath the blood and earth above it, as it is stated, he shall spill its blood, and cover it in earth. ויקרא 17 ו-13 דקות. The verse doesn't say with earth, but in earth, be'afar. This teaches that the blood must be surrounded by earth below it and earth above it. But how can this be fulfilled for a bird slaughtered in Emei? When the bird falls to the ground, the blood spills onto the earth, but there was no earth beneath the blood at the moment of shechita. The Gemara provides a solution that demonstrates the creative application of halacha. Rabbi Yonah bar Te'achlifa would designate for himself the earth of the entire valley, patka, before shooting the arrow. This is an act of legal designation, a conscious decision to set aside the earth of the valley as the earth below required by the mitzvah. By making this designation before shooting the arrow, the entire expanse of ground beneath the bird's flight path became, in legal terms, the lower layer of earth. When the blood eventually fell and landed on that earth, it was falling into earth that had already been designated for this purpose. Rabbi Yonah bar Teachlifa could then complete the mitzvah by covering the blood with another layer of earth above. This solution reveals something profound. The laws of Shechita and Kisui De'am are not merely physical acts, but expressions of intent and spiritual consciousness. Through thought and preparation, even the most challenging scenario can be brought within the framework of halacha. The laws of Shechita are not merely a set of rules to be followed mechanically. They are a system of thought, a framework of principles derived from careful scriptural analysis. A core principle, that Shechita requires a drawing motion, emerges from the word shechut in Tanakh. This principle can then be logically and creatively applied to even the most extreme circumstances, slaughtering two animals simultaneously, multiple people holding one knife, or even shooting an arrow at a flying bird. Each application requires precision, both physical and intellectual. The knife must be examined for notches. The motion must be correct. The evidence must be verified. The requirements of Kisui De'am must be anticipated and fulfilled. What emerges is a transformation of a physical act into an expression of intellectual rigor and spiritual intentionality. This is the beauty of halacha, ancient principles meeting new circumstances, physical acts elevated by careful thought, and the continuous drawing motion of the blade reflecting the continuous drawing of meaning from Torah itself.